maybe it's nice to mention that lots of archaeologists have been playing this game, and in fact have been discussing it. I think it was a board, right, with the group there, have been... sorry, I will not just speak through the story. We're still on the authenticity topic, and before we move a little bit more towards this display of violence in the game and the perspectives of violence. Should I probably still shut up because we are still in the cutscene?
We're nearly there.
We're nearly there. And that will be the end of the cutscene for the rest of the game.
For the rest of the, yeah, mostly.
Yeah.
That's what they wrote.
Udam Shajan. Winja Damsha. Hugujarra. Udam. Hai Hu Winja Huguan. Winja Hai Wabuasha. Sandansha. Oros.
Sakuim.
Walta lauba akista. Iki bar.
Alright. Expert lesson then. Cry Primal is going to find some green leaves. So we are not alone anymore. We have found one of our fellow tribal members, and I think think one of the, well, we're talking about authenticity, one of the cool things, which of course archaeologists really can't say too much about because we're not linguists, but the language in this game is in fact made by a linguist. Two linguists indeed. Oh, you are well prepared indeed, that's good to know. Do you even have a name for me? Alright, well we can look it up later and put it on our website with some info. Two linguists worked on the language in this game, which is grammatically and idiomatically coherent. It is based on Proto-Indo-European. So, from any language that you are yourself familiar with, if you're in Europe, you should recognize some words being spoken, because all these words, many of them, are also at the root of our own languages. Be they Germanic or Russia, there you go, and there's other little things. Tiki, that's another beautiful one. I like that Tiki. From now on I will count my captain home Tiki. But aside from that, we saw some interesting tribal practices right there. Because the girl we just met, who she's called Saila, was in fact hunting trophies of Udam, which is, while we're talking about trophy hunting, this is exactly what Krain, our brave warrior, is doing. He has killed one of the Udam, so these is one of the main enemy tribes in the game. And he wastes no whatnot. He picks up his arrow and he searches the body for some good stuff. So the stream wanted to know, people on the chat in the stream wanted to know a little bit about why this girl was taking those ears. And I'm not saying that as a fire and or megafauna expert you should be in the know here, but any maybe not so expert opinions on this from the hall. There we go. Don't take dog ears. That's not nice.
Just watch any movie on Vietnam and see the same thing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It is an interesting type of fetishization. I'm not sure that archaeologically this is attested at all, but it's one of those things that we bring in from our ethnographic fantasies of what fighting your enemies and trophy taking with your enemies is probably about. And unfortunately, Raymond Corbijn couldn't make it today because he's also one of the people that knows all about this sort of stuff. But I'm a student of this, so I'll try to fill his shoes a little bit. And I think that this is a typical analogy that is taken from what we think happens in tribal society. And people get killed, and if those people get killed, you want some of the essence of your enemies, and that's what you do. You take some ears. Maybe as an expert on what does it look like, maybe. I don't think the camera can see you, but you can definitely speak into the mic. Cutting off an ear with a bit of flintstone. Do you think that would work? All right, well, that answer scares me a bit. I will keep my ears covered tonight. Sure.
Well, this game seems to be all about violence and killing your enemies. But what I've always heard is that the hunter-gatherers weren't actually that violent. The periods after that, when they discovered articles, they suddenly killed each other for various reasons, of course, but they slaughtered each other in the battles take place. And that's basically out of nowhere. So the period before that, occasionally someone doesn't like when you smash it with your head, but it's not like this game that's just kill your enemies all day.
Right, that's a very good point, and we'll be talking a bit about that more today. But we need to answer your question. This goes back to what I think is a large philosophical divide, not even in archaeology or anthropology only, but the way we view our origins as human beings and how violent or peaceful we were. And I guess this is, I think Cry Primal is taking a very specific statement on how violent our ancestors in 10,000 BC were.
Yes, but the evidence is quite clear. In agriculture, there is discovered some violence is booming everywhere. That's in more regions than one. It's also in Japan with the German people who are, before they discover agriculture, they have small communities, they live peacefully, relatively peacefully together. After that, the new group comes in with the agriculture, and suddenly there's blood and murder all over the place. The only exception for this rule are small islands, and I mean really small islands, but the theory behind that is that there are not enough women, so they are going to wait to spread more genetics. That's the whole idea behind it. After they discover agriculture, then boom, also there murder and slaughter everywhere.
Right. So yeah, we are in fact, in a way, we're in a little bit of an island situation right here because the map we're playing on is Valley. We are supposed to have only entered it through this cave and cannot easily get out, which is in fact the way the game is as well. You can't really just keep on walking and just walk all the way up to the North Sea or something. So in a way, we are in a closed ecosystem. I guess that's sort of what the game is trying to tell us. But still, I agree with you that that screams and stuff like that is part of the game in a way that is maybe not backed up by archaeological evidence. And I guess that Douglas Fry is his name, would very much agree with you that human violence is indeed cultural and late, even in some areas of the world, invention. And indeed, that's evidence for interpersonal violence. The latest regions where we have that is even as late as 750 after Christ. So it is definitely not that well attested for 10,000 BC. Although, as you rightly pointed out, I'm sure something happened somewhere at some point, but not on any sort of larger identifiable scale. Archaeologically speaking, still, we are in the realm of ethnography, archaeology, and there's a big debate still. So it goes down all the way back to famous and very influential philosophers, Hobbes and Rousseau, and both of them were talking about the state, a need for a contract, a social contract, but they did this because of very different reasons. So Hobbes, an Englishman, in the 17th century, mid-17th century, posed the theory that humanity, the origins of humanity was inherently violent, and this is why we needed a social contract, we needed laws, we needed somebody to uphold those laws. A century later, Rousseau arrived at the same conclusion, but he instead suggested that we need that sort of stuff precisely because we start living together. So I guess you would be in the camp of Rousseau. When we start living together and we can organize things like agriculture, inter-village trade, things like that, that's when we start needing those laws and those systems to keep our violent impulses and the conflicts that come together with society in play. And I guess that Far Cry is also still playing with those two things. So at the same time, it's really posing a Hormesian worldview, brutal, nasty and short, brutish, nasty and short. And at the other hand, it's really when it comes together when it's really about society as well. It's about your little tribe. But maybe we have a little update from Cry, where we are right now in the game.
Yeah, so we just completed the tutorial part, which basically introduces you to the crafting system and to how you can collect materials, for instance. So the game opens up now, and from this moment on, it's called an open world game. And basically, this is the map, like what we've explored so far. And you can actually zoom out all the way until here. And if you see where I can go with my cursor, this is all explorable. So it's a huge game basically, and from now on I can basically do whatever I like. I have some missions which I can do, and which I will do. One of which is to free a shaman, which is located over here. Another interesting point of the game is that you can claim bonfires, and these bonfires, they are located all over the map. You need to light them, and they are basically sort of guide points in the map where you can fast travel to. So the First thing I'm going to do now is claim this bonfire for the Wanja tribe, so we can fast travel between them.
Alright, Wenja represent very good kind. Good luck with that, and I'll just return to my two resident experts in the couch right here.
So I'm gonna get over this title.
For sure. Oh, you gotta claim what you are. Any second thoughts after your first thoughts so far? Not really. We can also say, I think, that this is a particularly beautiful day. It looks kind of nice, right? That helps. It helps with transforming and transposing us into the world. But so far, of course, I'm dabbling through kinds of lovely gameplay. But do you feel any immersion? Do you feel that you're a part of this world, or can you?
He's not playing, so that's not really.
Well, you can be transfixed by it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think the layout is pretty good. If you look at all the different plant species that they incorporate, it's quite accurate. And
You like it?
Yeah.
I think it's cool how how little you see when you're roaming through the plants. It takes a long time before you actually see something in front of you until it's 10 meters away and starts running at you with its club or starts charging at you because it's a boar or a tiger or whatever. And I think they did that really well. Nothing sticks out. It all blends in together. And I think they did a swell job with the engine that they used. I definitely think so.
At this point, I'm also enjoying the interaction that the hunter has with the animals in the landscape, because he's actually able to get fairly close to them without them running away, and that's pretty normal for situations pretty much pre and post firearms, where there's the distance of approach. Pre-firearms is going to be much closer than post-firearms, because the loud noise and animals learn to fear certain predatory animals.
Well, there you go.
So, and I think the fact that he can come up quite close, because at this point, we still are close enough to nature that we move amongst it. We're not so separated from it as we are as perhaps today. And so it's I enjoy that you can move amongst them, and they just don't seem to care so much. And that's fairly accurate, I think.
I think it's, to go back to Vincent's point, it's interesting that this game, the Far Cry game series, it normally takes place in modern times. It takes place the first Far Cry, I think, was taking place on an island. The second was somewhere in Africa. The third was on a Pacific island again. And the fourth one was taking place in Himalaya. And I think that they were trying to mimic environments and moving around in these environments and the natural threats that come with these environments. And I think at some point the developers just realized that they could do more with this than in the age of the firearm, and that it would, for many reasons, work well in a situation where you are more part of your environment, for sure. So I guess that's what we're seeing. Guy is part of his environment in such a way that he even is part of the menu for these. I was wondering about this. How do you even pronounce the name? Do you know these animals? Dolls?
Dole.
Yeah, I haven't seen it before.
Right.
From Southeast Asia.
All right. From Southeast Asia.
Yeah, there's a number of geographical and temporal issues with some of the animals that maybe we can comment on those as we see them.
Right. We just saw a great stag, I guess.
Irish elk.
Irish elk.
Megalosaurus.
That actually,
That's okay.
This is good.
Okay.
Let's check. All right. Good. We can do this back at home. Everybody, we start playing authenticity bingo.
I guess counter to what I was saying about the ability of the humans to walk amongst the prey species without much issue. I'm wondering how aggressive the other predatory species would be to these humans. I think they would all be more wary and not so inclined to constantly attack him, especially the smaller dhole type carnivores, because they're going to be more pack hunters anyways. You get a number of them if they could ever overwhelm somebody who's bigger than them. So they're a little steroidal, these megafauna predators.
Rage-riding dolls.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's also where the game, of course.
Yeah.
So the game gives you a couple of enemies, which are written down, which we've already seen, and Itzina, which we'll probably see later as well. But they're really quite sparse. In contrast to normal games where your game world is often filled with enemies. So I think to sort of make up for that fact, they gave a bit of an aggressive streak to all the animals there. It's precisely because of what these games, these are first-person shooters, they're often called. I mean, this is not really a first-person shooter, it's more a first-person stabber right now with a spear. Or a clobberer, first-person clobberer. But
It uses the same mechanic.
it uses the same mechanics as any first-person, which means that you see the game from your particular...
And there's skill trees and stuff like
and
that.
there's skill trees, and it's not about mimicking the world precisely. It is instead about giving you fun ways to commit violence. In this case, in 10,000 BC, right? And apparently, one of those fun ways is to be attacked by dolls and also attack some other wildlife. Although the guy is smart enough to stay away from the Irish elk, that's good. Although maybe the Irish elk is not smart enough to stay away from the guy.
I think I'll go.
We got a question from the stream. Stream, keep the questions coming. We'll definitely want to hear from you too.
Yeah, we got a question from the stream. Since there was a wintry area where it was a bit snowy and stuff, why there are no warmer outfits, because we're dressed pretty lightly. But there actually are. You need a special outfit if you want to wander in those areas. And that's a pretty late game area, and you'll have to craft that as well. So it is realistic when it comes to that. In the meantime, I've noticed something as well. We're picking up leaves. That's probably a good question for you. We're picking up leaves and plants. They're all different plants, but they're all called green leaf, and blue leaf, and red leaf. And I think that's a nice touch, because was there like a lot of known in flora when it comes to this plant sorts and stuff like that? I mean, I don't think.
You mean from the archaeological record?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually a lot is known about these assemblages, because they study it for faunal, but also for botanical remains. So macro remains can tell you a lot about the species that lived at that time.
Yeah.
And that were quite similar to what you find nowadays.
But it's nice that they did that contrast with what we know, because we know all those plants.
Yeah,
But they didn't.
yeah.
And that's what I think. I like that they did it that way, because they weren't experts.
But I would argue that they were probably more expert than any one of us are. I'm sure if you're a paleobotanist or something, you're going to know all the Linnaean Latin names for the plants, and you can recognize them from drawings and whatnot. But these people have a very intimate association with their environment, and through generations and generations of trial and error and acquired knowledge, they're going to know exactly what most of these plants are going to be helpful for. Especially if they're within an environment that they've been in for a very long time. So I don't think these people experience too many surprises when it comes to these plants.
Ingesting some plants.
They know exactly what they're capable of and what they would want in a certain situation. So red leaf, green leaf, I mean, I think that's probably just taking it easy on the linguists who had to come up with the extensive language for this. Having to stick a name for every plant would probably get a little difficult even for the user, perhaps. So, but no, I think they know exactly what they're dealing with when it comes to the materials and the plants and the animals and the landscape.
Yeah, there's actually not that big variety when it comes to animals. It's not really. It doesn't become really narrow, and after a while you notice yourself that you start recognizing everything, and that makes it fun because you start learning as well about the game, not per se about how it actually was.
All right, I guess we're now entering one of. So I'll ask this question. We're entering one of my favorite parts of the game where we encounter the shaping. But all right, you go ahead.
Yeah, there was a question from the stream on whether these other tribes that we meet, they usually are 2 or 3 people, groups of 2 or 3 people, and whether we think they instantly start fighting if they meet like the animals, so that they start attacking you. So what would be the interaction between humans or different human tribes, or if we have any evidence?
I think generally avoidance is the first inclination of groups that encounter one another, because you have to assume that they are about as skilled as you are, and fighting is going to leave, at least maybe a couple of you dead or maimed, and you don't want to be either of those. So if there's not an imperative need or reason to attack this other group, you're generally just going to posture, maybe make some noise, maybe thrust your spear at them a bit, try to seem like the big guy in the group, just like any other predator animals. It's low-level warfare, I think. It's all about intimidation, but mainly avoidance, because green plants, green leaves are only going to help you so much after some of these wounds that you can sustain from these nasty, blunt and sharp weapons. So I think, by and large, these people are probably leaving each other alone.
Good. All right, shall we? Shaman time. I like this. You probably don't want to have to
Yeah, drink this, okay. The next one is even worse.